Hi, my name is Dustin Atwood. I've been with A1 Custom Car Care for a little over 20 years at this point. I've been in the business probably getting closer to 25 years. I've had 2 years of formal education, and I am a master automotive service technician as well as a master medium and heavy duty service technician. I've kept those current for probably more than 15 years. You have to recert those through ASE, which is Automotive Service Excellence, every 5 years. And that's every individual category that you're certified in. So I believe I'm certified in probably around 24 different categories, which would be engine mechanical, engine performance, electrical, heating and air, steering, suspension, brakes, automatic transmission, manual transmission. I have a service advisor certification, which is customer service related, obviously. I have all of those in the medium and heavy duty world. I also have an advanced level engine drivability, which is an L1. I have the L2, which is advanced diesel. And I also have the L3, which is a hybrid certification. I'm short one advanced level certification, which is an ADAS or autonomous driver assist system, and that will be coming. So we do ADAS calibrations and service. That will be something that you folks driving really 2014, 2018, they've kind of phased it in. If you're driving anything 2020 or newer, you have some of this system. Maybe blind spot monitor, lane keep assist, adaptive cruise, adaptive braking. There's a lot that goes into that system. So that will be one of my up and coming certifications. We do have a technician within our company that already has it. I just hadn't quite made it there yet. So again, I give you all that just to give you some background in case this is the first video that you're seeing in our podcast series with A1 Custom Car Care. Kind of have an idea who's talking with you and kind of what we're about. So really the mindset behind doing these videos is we had done a radio show for 9 years, 8 or 9 years. It was quite a while. And we've kind of shifted away from that into some television. So if you're local here around the surrounding area of Springfield, Missouri, you'll probably see us on there as well. And it's very informative. It's current events that are going on in the industry, repeat issues that I'm seeing that I feel like education can help folks avoid some of those costly repairs, because you and I both know as well that nothing's getting cheaper, let alone the automotive industry. You know, when I was a kid, you could buy you a real nice Chevy pickup for $10,000 brand new. You won't touch a base model for less than $40,000, somewhere in that ballpark, let alone buy something with some bells and whistles on it for 70, 80, 100,000. So our goal at A1 Custom, and my goal as a service technician and, you know, being somebody that loves the automotive industry, is to try and share some of this information to where, you know, maybe you can be a little more informed. And anytime folks are more informed with good quality information, I'm not talking about cat videos out there, nothing against our cat people, but we're talking about stuff that I feel like you're going to use that hopefully will prevent you from making some decisions that may cost you financially or, you know, downtime that you can't, because you and I both know nobody's driving less these days than they were 15 years ago. I mean, the amount of miles that, you know, I'm seeing put on these vehicles are, you know, we service late model vehicles, obviously, but I would say our normal, you know, lion's share of the customers are anywhere from that 10 to 20-year-old range, and anywhere from probably 170,000 to 300,000. That's a normal vehicle for us. The pickup that I drove to work today has 310,000. It's an '07 F-150, and the thing runs like a top. Have I had to do some work to it? Sure. But we attended a training on transmissions last week on Saturday down in Tulsa. We took that truck and I didn't bat an eye with it. It cruised down there at 80, 85 miles an hour, allegedly, in case there's any law enforcement officers out there, and did just fine. Fired up, drove it back, no problem. Cruise control, air, the whole nine works on that truck. It works very well. So I share that with you because 300,000 used to be a crazy amount of miles, and you would get rid of those vehicles at this point. And really, I'm seeing a lot of the vehicles that were, I'm going to say 2012 to 2015 and older, even 2015, probably 2012 and older. The systems were much more refined, and they were able to be, I don't want to say neglected, but they would go a lot farther without the high level of maintenance that I'm seeing on the cars nowadays. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. I told you the series that we added or we put up last Monday was on a viewer's comment, and I have the second viewer comment, which I really appreciate, by the way. And I read it in last week's video. It really pertained to really how a customer is billed, if the job takes longer or not. So if you haven't seen that and it interests you, please check it out. This one this week is the age of the shade tree mechanic a thing of the past? And I'm not going to read quite all of this. I did in the last video, but the gist of it is that they're noticing at a consumer or a operator or owner of a vehicle that the vehicles are not easily worked on anymore. Now, you'll see earlier on the channel, or you want to view some of the stuff. In my off time, I share on the channel in a lot of shorts and even some long form content videos of kind of what I do on my off time. I love the automotive industry that much that I still spend a lot of my personal time taking care of, my family's vehicles, my, fixer up vehicles that I'm, putting back out into circulation. And one of them that I was able to get taken care of was a really beautiful 72 Buick Riviera. Now that had a 455 big block in it, and I have some footage where we're checking the dwell on the points and condenser, we're checking and setting the timing, we're adjusting the carburetor. But that is a massive big block GM engine, and you could literally reach around the backside of the engine and you could pull bell housing bolts. I mean, there was a significant amount of room. The adverse side of that, the vehicles that you look at, you open the hood and you can't even see the engine or the transmission. And really the reality of it is they've made it much more difficult for the do-it-yourselfer, a high-level do-it-yourselfer, or even a commercial professional automotive technician. We spend here at A1 Custom a tremendous amount of resources and money, time and training as well, making sure we have the equipment to service late model vehicles as well as some of the older stuff. I pretty much draw the line anymore at 1996 and newer. And you might think, well, that's not that long ago, and it really isn't. But there was a very large technology change in 96. We went from OBD1, which is onboard diagnostics, the first segment or criteria that they had to follow, to OBD2, which is where we had some communication with the vehicle with a scan tool. Now we're well past that. We have high-speed CAN, network diagnostics, and it's getting ready to take another big jump as well. But the reason I cut it off at 1996 or 95 and older is because that really, at this point in time, is considered restoration work, in my opinion. I've shared with you that my dad was in the automotive field. He was an auto body technician the majority of my life, got into auto glass. I spent a lot of time on the job with him before ever that I was going to be an automotive mechanic full-time for a living. And so I got to see that side of the world. At one point, he did work at a restoration shop, and that's just a totally different model that A1 Custom is set up for. And so when we look at servicing these vehicles that you have to pull the cradle, or you have to pull the cab, or you have to have high-speed diagnostic equipment, as well as amazing amounts of training. I shared with you my Saturday, that typically, is a day off. We went down for an 8-hour training in Tulsa. We left at 5 a.m., got down there a little bit before 8. They had coffee and donuts and some refreshments. It was a transmission training, and it was really good. Automatic Transmission Rebuilding Association is who put it on. They talked about a lot of the pattern issues that we're seeing on some of these new transmissions. But that was how we spent our off time this weekend. which was a choice, by the way. We chose to go down there and spend our weekend because as we come back to the shop, I don't want to be practicing on your vehicles. And so if we have the training up front, when we have those issues come in the shop, we will be able to deal with them much differently than a lot of other service centers out there. And so that's really kind of part of it. It's not only having the late model tools, but having the training to go along with those so we can deploy them very intentfully to where you have a better service experience. And really, the biggest value that we have, the most difficult thing that I do is being right and figuring out what's going on with the car. The most expensive thing that I do is being right and being able to test versus guess and figure out what's wrong with the car. And the third thing is that actually saves you money. Even though the testing time and procedure is an expense, I continue to see cars that either you looked up on Google, you looked up here on YouTube, you went to the parts store and they pulled a code and they sold you a bunch of parts. I continue to see more money spent guessing on what's wrong with a car than I do paying for accurate, adequately or very well equipped and trained automotive technician to diagnose your car. And so I would love to tell you, and I keep it here on my desk, that when you plug it in, it automatically pulls up like a magic 8-ball. This is what's wrong with the car. Honestly, I sincerely wish it was that easy. But the reality is I've done this for 20 years. It's just not. And so I see folks go to other places, or maybe they attempt to figure it out on their own. No judgment or shade there. But not only now do I have the root cause of what's going on, I also have typically inferior aftermarket parts that somebody's installed, or they didn't know what they were doing and they created other issues that I wouldn't have had to figure out, which costs more money and more time. So we don't want to be the best guesser in town. This is a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's a magic 8-ball, and when the 8-ball comes up, it basically just guesses. Well, I'm not a guessing technician. We are not a guessing repair facility. We are going to test your vehicle because if and when I have to do service or repair to it, I want to make sure that I'm spending my time and your money in the right area. That's the valuable thing that I can do for you is be correct. Are we 100%? I'll be real honest with you right now. We do get some egg on our face once in a while. It's not intentional. It's not because we're incompetent. These vehicles are extremely complex. And I had one out there right now. I was working today with our head tech here at our Fort Sunshine location. He's got a hybrid. I think it was a Tahoe or Suburban. Great vehicles, by the way. This vehicle, when we done a topology report, or basically scanned all modules, it had over a dozen fault codes in it. Now, had I took the approach of the big box parts store and I just started pulling parts off the shelf and plugging it in there, we would have spent a boatload of money on this guy's vehicle. And I'm sure that's not what he's wanting. He wants his vehicle fixed, and I'm sure he wants to pay a fair price for it. But we've got to narrow that down to what his concerns are and what he's wanting fixed. Does he want all these systems looked at? And it's not just as simple as plugging it in and it says, hey, let's put an oxygen sensor. I see more good oxygen sensors replaced for other reasons than I ever see them accurately diagnosed. And maybe I'm getting them after they've been to the parts store or somebody had tried to figure out what was going on with it. We look at the service information because there's so much more information than just a code that says, hey, you need an oxygen sensor. There is no code for that, by the way. Even if I have a heater circuit code or a slow or lack of activity code, I'm going to test those systems before I come to you and say, hey, we need to spend this much of your money. I feel like that's just the right thing to do. Is it easier? And are there shops out there that just throw parts at cars? Or they're like, hey, we think it's this and we think it's that and this did this. And it's a big smoke and mirrors show. And I just don't have time for that, to be very honest. I have dedicated myself to being a good diagnostician, and I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by a group of folks that are very dedicated to this industry just as I am. And it may be a situation where, the expectation is that, you just look or listen to the vehicle or you describe what's going on to it. And, I'm just magically supposed to know. And even back in the day, I believe the vehicles and the mechanics, say through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that's really about all you had, honestly, because you didn't have any of the onboard systems that monitor and interface with that we do today. And in reality, those systems have what's called adaptives, and they can adapt and correct a problem that you have that now the car has covered up that you don't even know it until it gets really bad. And I'll give you a couple examples. One of the things I look at with certain transmission manufacturers is they will have tap cells or adaptive CVI numbers, which is clutch volumetric index and transmission adaptive pressure. And those are two different manufacturers out there. Well, you may have a transmission issue for quite a while, maybe years even, and you don't even know it. And then all of a sudden, it really gets bad enough that the computer can't cover it up. And I'm looking at the service information here, and I can see that it's had to apply a significant amount more pressure and fluid to a certain set of clutch packs because they're flat, smoked, and worn out. Well, to you, all of a sudden, that just happened. Well, to your vehicle and your transmission, it's been learning that over time, and it has been adapting and covering that up. No trouble code out there is ever going to tell you that, and me listening, smelling, or anything is going to tell me or give me that information. But from years of training and investment in tools and equipment, I know that when you come in, I can check these numbers, and I can tell you whether you have a healthy transmission or you don't. How valuable is that information? To me, that's extremely valuable. And I really take a lot of pride in making sure that that is the value that A1 Custom can bring to you. Now, every manufacturer out there does not have the same criteria that I can check that on every car, but I can do it on a bunch of them, and I can do it on some of the most common vehicles out there that you all are driving every single day. So that's the difference of what I see in the industry is the technology has outpaced the shade tree mechanic, unfortunately, as well as a lot of the independent or small mom and pop shops. I don't know about you, but there used to be a lot more here around Springfield. They have been forced or pushed out for many different reasons. Cost of doing business is getting unbelievable, to be honest. The high caliber technician or service advisor that it takes to deal with these late model vehicles and come to you and have a fairly substantial discussion about either maintaining and maintaining these vehicles so they don't break, or unfortunately more what I see is that it's too late and we have a failed system, whether it's coolant related, AC related, engine, transmission, differential related. It's not as easy as it was through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I'm not saying it was easy during that time, but I'm saying it was easier and those vehicles were built and equipped. I even can still remember certain vehicles that came out with toolkits when they came off the assembly line so you could make sure and keep yourself on the road. I want you to think about this right now. How many of you have opened the hood on your vehicle in the last month? On this channel, it's probably a higher number than most, but most people don't do that. I had a situation here, it's been a couple of years ago, it's at my Republic location. Nice guy, not throwing any shade at him by no means. I hated it for him. He had a Chevy Trailblazer and he called me and said, hey, my vehicle's making some noise, can you listen to it? I assumed it was a rattle or clank. Sure, bring it on down. I got time, I'll squeeze you in. Well, he pulled up there, and at our Republic location, it's a big blank bank of glass windows, and I could hear the engine knocking before he ever even got out of the vehicle. And so I went out there and said, "Hey, how you doing?" I pulled the dipstick, and the dipstick, was full. And I said, "Hey, have you changed your oil lately? What's going on? We have a significant engine problem." And his response is, "Yeah, I had to add 3 or 4 quarts of oil. I can't remember exactly one or the other, but it was a significant amount." And his theory or philosophy was he waited until the low oil pressure light came on, and then he would add oil. Well, by then, a lot of the damage has already occurred. And so you may think that there is a oil level sensor, and on maybe 3% of the vehicles ever manufactured is there an oil level sensor. Most of them run off a pressure. And so as you remove the amount of oil that it keep lubricate the vehicle, but keep the engine cool. Oil is not only lubricant, it also a lot of heat out of the engine. As you diminish the amount of capacity, that oil gets less effective and less effective. And unfortunately, in this instance, it cost the gentleman an engine. Now, he wasn't happy about that. He was really honestly kind of caught off guard. He's like, "Well, I've been doing that for a while." Well, those 4200 or inline 6-cylinder, those are almost, I don't want to say they're impossible to kill, but I have many of them, of folks that I know and service regularly, that are pushing over 300,000 and 400,000 miles without having me go inside that engine and do any major repairs. Have I done tune-ups and water pumps and thermostats and radiators and alternators? Yeah, I've done all that stuff. But I'm talking the internal rotating assembly, valve cover gaskets, intake gaskets. I've done all that, transmissions occasionally. But I have many of those out there on the road right now with well over 300,000 on them, and they're still going, pardon me, very strong and very dependably. What takes those out is situations where they've pushed it too far and there's no vehicle out there that's going to actually be able to tolerate that. And unfortunately, that it may not break today, but anytime you neglect things that are going on with a vehicle, you may not break now. And you think, "Oh, I got away with that, no big deal." What it's doing is, say this is 0 miles and this is 500,000 miles. When that stuff happens, it's not breaking in here. It's taking life off of the life expectancy of that vehicle. And maybe, "Oh, I got 200,000 out of it. That was a good car." You're right, it was a good car. But maybe I got 300 out of mine, or maybe I got 400 or 500, and it was still a good car at the end. I was still driving it, and I was able to sell it and recoup all my money back out of it. Maybe you think I'm storing you, but I've talked about my Excursion. Now, it was a diesel, so I will give you a little bit. But I had a 03 Excursion, which I really kicked myself in the butt for selling. That thing was awesome. On a 3/4 ton chassis, 7.3 liter Power Stroke diesel engine with 470,000 miles. Had a gentleman drive all the way from Oklahoma, didn't bring a trailer, got in my Excursion, paid me my asking price. I think I got about $9,000 for it. It had 470,000 miles on it, and he drove it all the way back to Oak City, and I would venture to say he's still driving it today. So that's what I'm talking about. When we do a good job taking care of our vehicle, I don't want to say it's endless, but I can get a lot of return value on a vehicle if I give it the right love at the right time. And really, the earlier intervals are almost more important than the later intervals. And what I mean by that is, as that engine, transmission, transfer case, differential, as all of those are breaking in, they are wearing and seeding all of the material together. A tribologist is a science that studies the interference of material, okay? I'm not one, by the way, but I have been or had the opportunity to be around a lot of them. And if you can break those components in right and then service the fluids on them on a regular basis, a lot of these large repairs can be avoided. And I realize I'm bird walking around the shade tree mechanic, if you will, but that's the information that's not out there, and why a lot of these services could be avoided to where whether you're a shade tree or you're a professional mechanic, you could avoid all those situations. But if you do have something that breaks, a lot of times we are having to purchase or equip ourselves to be able to drop engine cradles. Now, the engine cradle, if you're not familiar, is the lower suspension that the transmission and the transfer case sometimes, or power takeoff unit and engine is actually kind of seated in. So back in the day, you'd open the hood and you did most of your service from under the hood. And we still do some of that, but they have made these vehicles more aerodynamic and more shoehorned in there, if you will, that it's designed that if you have to do much service to it, you set it up, you remove all the attach points, and you actually leave the drivetrain and the cradle, which is the front suspension piece, on jack stands or a lifting table, and then we place our two-post lift to where we raise the body off of the engine and transmission and sometimes power takeoff unit if it's all-wheel drive. We do the repairs we need, and then we set the body very carefully back on that, and we get it all married back together and then finish reassembling. That's not something you're going to be able to do with a set of chain falls and a tree. And I have done engines hanging from trees over the years, so no judgment at all there. But that's really what we're talking about now. It's just they have engineered them to where they don't want you in there working on it. And if you try it, a lot of times, unfortunately, it costs you more in the long run. The other thing is if we get into the truck side of the world, we don't work on as many cars. There's just not as many actual cars out there as there used to be. It's SUVs and trucks. Now, I do a lot of service on Hondas and Toyotas. They make a very good, popular sedan. But sometimes I got to drop the engine out of the bottom on those as well. But let's shift into the truck world now. So we've got these giant trucks. I mean, you look at a half-ton truck now, they're really more, when I was a kid, along the lines of the capabilities of what a three-quarter-ton truck was. Towing, engine performance, power, payload, etc. But the engines are getting smaller, and they're really getting, kind of stuffed back under the cowling or the firewall. And so they're designed to have the cab lifted off of them. You have now the chassis and the engine kind of sitting in front of you. There will be some videos on the channel coming out of one that I have coming up. We just finished a timing chain job on a 3.5 EcoBoost over at Sunset. I believe we may have actually another one coming up. And that's how the service procedure is set up to be done. That's how they're designed to be serviced. Now, that's not something you're going to be able to do at home very easily. Are there some folks out there that can? Yeah, you guys work really, really hard. And, I guarantee you may be in the ballpark of book time, but you're probably not beating it. And your time is valuable just as much as mine is. So I'm going to, invest in the equipment and have the training and the ability to do it in the manner that the manufacturer wanted it done, because I'm going to stand behind most of those repairs for many thousands of miles. So that's really what I believe that this question or comment, if you will, which, again, if you've got comments and things you want us to talk about, let me know. They are designed not to be worked on. They are designed to have a shop and facility to pull the cab or drop the cradle or have high-level bidirectional scan tools with the ability to look at data, as well as lab scope work, which is a whole nother discussion that a lot of shops out there don't have the ability to do lab scope work. So I want to share all that with you, and that's what kind of we started this channel for, and started it about as we come up here on about an hour, or I'm sorry, about 30 minutes. I'm kind of just checking to see how things are looking here. I greatly appreciate the questions. I love hanging out with you guys each Monday here. Now, I do cut these early in the week, and I'm trying to keep consistent so you guys have some comment or some content of kind of what's going on in a late model professional automotive repair facility, because there's unfortunately getting less and less of them. If you have a good facility that you have a good relationship with, you need to stick with them, even if it's not A1 Custom Car Care. If you're getting good service, they're doing a good job fixing your vehicle, excellent. If you're one of those people that have kind of been run around the bush, and I see you when you come in, I can see your hesitation when you're like, man, been taken advantage of, or they took my money and didn't fix my car, etc. I really, as a member of A1 Custom Car Care, we put in a lot of effort to mend some of those scars and wounds from previous repair experiences at other shops. And when we get a little egg on our face, and it does happen, I try and take those super duper seriously as well. Learn from them and do my best to make them right. So we're not perfect as a company, but we work at being better as a company every single day. And that is why I've been here over 20 plus years. I did leave for a very short amount of time, and I went to work for a company that wasn't that way. I thought every business should be that way, but unfortunately they're not. And thankfully I left under good terms. I was able to come back. I was only gone about maybe 6-9 months, something like that. It's been 20 years ago now. And I was able to come back and be a part of something that I was proud to get up and put on a uniform and be seen at ball games, etc. As far as the automotive industry, I feel like we have a lot of ground to make up, and the vehicles being more technical make it that much more critical that we're good at what we do, or our craft or our trade, and that you get to experience that, because these vehicles are not getting cheaper. They're something that you need to be able to drive for, in my opinion, at least a decade, even to break even. But if you can drive your vehicle paid off, say it's a 7-year note, I think that's probably pretty standard. I know there's 8 and 10-year notes because the price of these vehicles are getting so high. You really, minimum to break even, in my opinion, need to drive them 10 years and 200,000 miles. After that, you're making up for depreciation. So everybody talks about you taking a hit when you buy a vehicle up front. Oh, it's worth less now as you drive it off the lot than what you just paid for it. And I get it, that's kind of still accurate. But how much is my vehicle worth after I've driven it 12, 13, 15, 20 years? How much of that depreciation did I offset? I guarantee I made money on that now, because the average, last I checked, the average payment here in the United States was like almost $800. It was $770. Maybe more than that now, I don't know. If you know, leave in the comments and let me know. But we're about 33 minutes here. You got something else you want me to talk about? Great. I will set it up and talk next week. Thanks for hanging out with me.